Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Viral and today this video is kind of a nerdy video if you are like me who just love to keep track of everything that you read, then I think you will like this video. I recently read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte and wow, this is easily my one of favorite book of all time right now on current run. But the important thing is I found so many fascinated things while I was reading it, and so what I did is kind of read it again. And when I read it again, I go into the book with mindset of finding out the clues of everything. Like, I think the book, its characters, their characters names, place names, and everything is placed very methodically. Like, the theme of the book is the journey of Jane's life and her maturity, her character development, you can say. But in the light of her own, we tend to forget the minor character who plays important role in Jane's life. So this video is dedicated to them. We're going to see what happened to every major character in the book and what happened to them, will how they perform their duty in Jane's life, and how they achieve what they want to achieve in the first place when they first introduce to us the reader, and at the end when we get the closure and the author try to tie up all the loose end, we get the closure of some kind and every character get their wish on some level. So I really want to talk about that. After some years I will be thinking about what happened to this character, so I will look back to this video and yeah, I will have my answer ready for me. Okay, so that's the main purpose of this video. So yeah, welcome to my channel, welcome to this video, hope you enjoy your stay, and let's start with the chronological order. So let's talk about the first two characters. Jane is orphan, and that is Jane's parents. So Mr. and Mrs. Eyre is died when we met Jane, and how did they die we don't know at this point, so we don't have much of a background about them. Mrs. Eyre was upper social class woman and she married Mr. Eyre, who is beneath her according to their family, so they disown her and they did not care for her anymore. So that is kind of her story of becoming poor, and then she died. Okay, so Jane got adopted to her uncle, and their name is Mr. and Mrs. Reed. Mr. Reed is Jane's uncle who adopted her because he loves his sister so much. Even after their whole family disown her, he loved her. Okay, and that's why he had a special place for Jane also. He cared for her like his own child, and then he died. Okay, he died just he's dead and Jane is alone again. Like, the fatherly figure that she knows certainly passed away, and leaving her alone in this world to the care of Mrs. Reed and their three children. So the three cousin siblings that Jane gets is Mr. John Reed, Miss Georgiana Reed, and Miss Eliza Reed. What happened to them? So John is kind of a bully. He is cousin to Jane, but because of her low social class of her father, she became just a strange person to John, and he never accepted her as his cousin, and he always tormented her. He is kind of a big bully, and when he grow up, his bad habits just grow with him. Like, he don't care about his sisters Georgiana and Eliza, and he don't think much about of his mother as well. He only wants money from them, and he got flung out from college and after that he get into this gambling debt, and after getting no money after getting no money from his own family, he committed suicide and died. So the purpose of John in this story is like what not to become when you are little and you don't respect your elders or don't have much of a moral in your heart, then you will become something like that and you will die alone and your life become a tragedy. So that's how John died. One cousin down, two more to go. So what happened to Eliza? Eliza became she she became a nun. When Jane returned to Gateshead, she was encountered by this strange Eliza, because we never get to know Eliza that well. She became this strict, close person that sees the world like black and white. Eliza really wants to go to this French convent school, and there she wants to study Roman Catholic dogmas, and ultimately she wants to become a nun. So after when Jane was returning back to Thornfield, she told the reader that ultimately Eliza became that, like she became nun, and yeah, she was happy in her life in her own ways. Plus, here we also get to see that Jane do not approve of this life, but she accept that everyone has their own ways to life. Everyone wants to live their life on their own ways, so she accept that, and that is like a mature call on Jane's part. So that is that. Let's talk about Georgiana Reid. She was something like beauty. Everyone falls for her, and when she go to London, when she grew up, she went to London and she really want to marry a rich person, but when some lord fall in love with her, they try to elope and got caught by Eliza and she stopped them. Okay, so Georgiana was back in the country, in their old house, and now when Jane visit them, Georgiana express her desire to marry someone rich and go to London again. She wants their aunt to call for her so she could go there and meet someone and yeah, live her life as she wishes. So after all this happened, Jane informed us that Georgiana actually go to London and met someone wealthy and marry them, and yeah, now she has a upper social class and every wishes of her came true, kind of way. Now let's talk about Bessie. Bessie was the servant when Jane was little and living at Gateshead Hall. Like she Bessie was the one who actually truly cared about Jane, and she tried to, discipline Jane and try to control her behavior in a very mannerful manner. She tried to correct Jane's manner in a good way. When Jane met Bessie in her adult life, Bessie told Jane that she marries the coachman of their house, whose name is Robert Leven. She has two children and they are called Bobby and Jane. So Jane do not think much about this name, but I think that Bessie name her own child after Jane. Like, why not? Why not? It's the book of Jane, so name everyone Jane, okay? No problem. So yeah, that's the story of Bessie. Bessie got a happy full life. She enjoy her work, she get to work as she pleases, and she is fulfilled, happy, content, and that's a good thing. Then we get to see the most tragic character of this book, and that is Helen Burns. So she is a kind of a sisterly figure in Jane's life when Jane studied at Lowood. But Helen was someone who truly believed in the word of God. She tried to teach Jane about God and her reviews on it, how obedient she feels, how peaceful she felt in her mind when she talks about her duty towards God, and how she believes in them. Okay, in even in her suffering, she was like, yeah, I really believe that through suffering we can achieve heaven and all that stuff. So but her life got very shortened by the typhoid outbreak that happened in the lowood, and that takes Helen, and Jane just lost the one person that she thinks that Helen will be there at the end of her life, and that is not happen here. So it's very tragic. I When I read it, I did not see that coming, but yeah, on some level I did, but still I was hoping that Helen would survive. uh, on the side note, I think Helen would make a perfect wife to Mr. St. John Rivers at the end. Like, she would be perfectly happy if he chooses her. I think it would be so great to see Helen and Jane became a governess in the neighborhood, and how they just always together and all that stuff. But that didn't happen, unfortunately. Helen dies, and that was very painful to Jane, because on the other hand, Jane survives. But yeah, losing a loved one is always painful. So there is that. Then we have one positive character in the lower school, and that is Miss Temple. She was a teacher when Jane came into the school, and she was a motherly figure that Jane needs, and she truly cares for her. She tried to teach Jane everything that she knows. She cared for her health, and when Jane graduated from the school, she also worked at Lowood for 2 years as a teacher, and in that time, Miss Temple was the one who always with Jane. And after that, she got married to some clergyman. She went to this distant country where Jane cannot go with her. So yeah, another person just go out from Jane's life, and but they leave behind their impression on Jane's heart. They teach so much to her, and they just shape her years there. Okay, and even her future, they are influential in Jane's future. They are always present in her mind, and I don't think Jane ever forget Miss Temple or Helen for that matter. Now we get one despicable character, and that is Mr. Brocklehurst. Okay, I know I am pronouncing it wrong, but I cannot tell you otherwise. Okay, I cannot change my tongue right now. So, Mr. Brocklehurst, it is. He was a strict principal of Lowood School. He teaches a word of God by punishing everyone. I mean everyone at that school. He do not believe in earthly possession. He just keep the school in very low condition as its name. He do not care for children's safety or hygiene or health or food. Everything was bad. I don't think he is a true believer, because he do not practice this kind of thing in his own home. His girls were exquisitely dressed all the time. Like, we saw them one time, and they were like they were drowning in earthly possession. Okay, and according to Mr. Brocklehurst, that is not a ladylike behavior. So what is he was a hypocrite. Okay, he was a hypocrite. And after the typhoid outbreak, so many wealthy beneficiary patron just reach out to the school, and all of the bad stuff they found, they can't replace Mr. Brocklehurst. Even he was at a fault, but because of his high social class, they just can't replace him, okay? But his chambers and his authority just taken away and shared by other people who really know how to run a school and how to educate children and how to make them a very appropriate human beings, I would say. I would like to read this passage. Okay, I just love this description. So, he was aided in the discharge of his duty by a gentleman of rather more enlarged and sympathizing mind. His office of inspector, too, was shared by those who knew how to combine reason with strictness, which means that Mr. Brocklehurst do not know or do not have a logical mind to combine reason with strictness. He only knows strictness, okay? He do not dwell on the reason or logic or common sense. Comfort with economy, compassion with uprightness. The school thus improved, became in time a truly useful and noble institution. See? So, because Mr. Brocklehurst was dethroned, the school became a noble institution, and that is very ironical considering Mr. Brocklehurst was a noble gentleman or considered to be a noble gentleman, but he do not run or he do not know how to run a school very nobly, Now we come to Mrs. Reed, that is Jane's aunt. She had a stroke after John take his own life. She cannot run the household and live her life with this mental trauma, so she just collapsed one day, and from there her health deteriorates. So she is the one who always hated Jane, and she considered Jane as the torment of her life. So when she died, she wants to meet Jane, and she informed Jane that Jane has an uncle that inquired about her 3 years ago, but her hate for Jane is so powerful that she wrote to him that Jane died in the typhus outbreak in the lowood school. So, yeah, that was her grudge over Jane, a 10-year-old child, when she was a little girl in her home. Then she died. She do not apologize for her action because in her mind she justify all of that behavior, and she reasoned with Jane that Jane was not a very docile child, and that's why she did what she did. And yeah, her life just ends, but her presence in Jane's life did not alter Jane's mind. Like, she became this kind person when she grew up, that she did not do the same thing that Mrs. Reed done to her, to Adele, her pupil. Okay, so when Jane go to Thornfield, we get to meet Adele. Adele is a French girl, and she was Mr. Rochester ward, so she was in his care. Okay, and Jane went there to teach her and to make her a very ladylike. When Jane met Adele, Adele was like 10 12 years old, I don't remember, but yeah, 10 or 12-year old, I'm going with this. So Adele was very passionate, and she do not understand the ways of living in the Thornfield hold, and she do not speak very much English. And the author describe here that Jane corrected her French defect with her English teaching, which I'm not agree at all, because I think that in this book the foreign women are majorly criticized or not considered as a human being. Yeah, there, I said it. Unpopular opinion, kill me now. Whatever. We met Adele, and we get to see how she was so cheerful, so passionate, and she was very expressive child. She just want to flaunt everywhere she goes, she do not know how to behave because her mother never taught her, and her mother was like, slut kind of. Okay, so she do not know. She do not have any siblings to teach her. Then she met Jane and her life changed. Jane taught her everything that she knows. After some years, Jane put her into a school that she likes, and at the end, we were informed that Adele became a very docile person, and yeah, her defect was corrected. Now we come to three siblings that are very different from the Reed siblings. Like here we have St. John Rivers and his two sisters, Mary and Diana Rivers. So Jane met them at Moore's house and Moore's house, okay, and they became a true siblings. Like Jane found a family of brother and sisters. Jane saw them as their own family, and after some incident, we finally found out that that was the case. Like John's uncle and Jane's uncle were the same uncle that was inquiring about Jane a few years ago to Mrs. Reed. So, this story came whole circle that when her uncle died, like Mr. Eyre, the uncle died and he left £20,000 to Jane. But Jane has no use for this money because in Jane's eyes, she really wants a family, and when she saw that she is related to these three, she wants to pay them for saving her life, accepting her in their home, caring for her, giving her job, and ultimately she really wants a fair share of her inheritance. So she shared the £20,000 in four pieces equally, and yeah, they don't have to work anymore. Jane just love them as their own. She just want to be accepted. Okay, she just want a family, a loving family, and she found them in here in Moore's house. And because of her uncle, they just live happily. When we first met Mary and Diana, they are going to Cambridge for the job of governess because that's how they are going to live their life. But after they receive the inheritance that Jane gave them, they don't have to work, so they all just live together. And yeah, that was the happy family that we get, the happy sibling relationship that we get in this book. But what happened to them at the end is Diana and Mary just marry a very appropriable match, I would say. Okay, so Diana's husband is a captain in the navy, and Mary marries someone who is clergyman, and they both are very happy, and they visit Jane when they have time. So they are like, yeah, if you want to spend a summer holiday in your aunt house, you can go to Cambridge. Okay, that type of relationship they have with each other, and Jane was so happy. So let's talk about St. John Rivers. Okay, I really struggle with this character because yeah, I have my doubts, like what is his deal. But he is a complex character, and that is very different from what you can see on your face, like what you can read about a character, but inside you know that this character is thinking about this aspect very differently. Like that kind of character St. John River is. So he is elder brother to Mary and Diana, and he truly believes in a word of God. He wants to be a missionary and wants to go to India and teach the Indians in the way of God. And I don't know, just because I'm Indian, offend I should be offended by this, but I'm really not. And that's not because St. John Rivers just want to, you know, in his eyes, he just want to teach the people about God. But in author's eyes, I really blame Charlotte Bronte for this. Okay, in her eyes, everyone is beneath this English society, and I just don't agree with it. I mean, yeah, I don't want to go into this whole drama about nations, but yeah, you guys do colonize our country, so yeah, it's all on you, babe. It's all on you. It's not never going to come off, okay? You're tainted that way. What happened to him in India? He wants to marry Jane because he observed that Jane has certain qualities that can lead a very devoted missionary's wife, and she can be helpful in his teaching his work of God. She can be helpful. He saw Jane that way. Okay, he were like, yeah, Jane could be a really devotee when you think about it. But he was wrong. He was wrong in judging Jane character. He thinks that Jane is very reserved person. He thinks that Jane has no feelings, and he could mend Jane's character at this point, like when we have, like in the last part of the book, where Jane's maturity should be at its peak. He could be mend his character on his own will. I don't think so. Okay, so he judged Jane very wrongly here, and he proposed to her. Okay, and he rejected him by saying that he sees him as her brother and she do not want to marry him. She would gladly go to India with him and do God's work, but she will never be married to him. No matter what, she would never be married to him. And he put so many contradiction and argument and his hypothesis in front of her, but she would not budge. She do not want to marry him at all. So ultimately he goes to India, and after some years he died there. How? We do not know. What happened to him? We still don't know. How many people he converted? I have no idea, but Jane thinks that he was satisfied with his life, and finally he would be truly would be with his Lord as he predicted. So he, in a way, he got his happy ending. He only cared about the teaching of God and nothing more. He just passionate about this stuff, and there you have it, St. John Rivers, a complex character. Now we have a very special character, and that is Bertha Mason. Bertha is Mr. Rochester's wife, and yeah, that is the best kept secret in this book. She was in the Thornfield Hall for years and years. She was kept hidden from the general eyes. Everyone thinks that his wife died, but she was not. She was alive, and they were married for 15 years. She came to Mr. Rochester's life when he was overseas, and she was like Spanish woman. Yes, she was a Spanish woman, and her brother and father just forced the marriage between them after Mr. Rochester was captivated by her beauty and her manners and her seductiveness. They were married in a very short time, and after that he got to see the real Bertha. Okay, she was insane. She has a mental illness, we get it. So what did he do? Nothing. He just locked her up for the indefinite time, and she just stay there with a servant, and he pay the servant well. And Bertha just want to be free. Bertha just want to be free. And once again the book just treat the foreign woman very badly, very wrongly. So Bertha was hidden secret of Mr. Rochester, and at the end she burned down the Thornfield Hall and took her own life. And by taking this step, she finally free, because that's the only way she can be free from her own mind, from her own degenerative lifestyle, and from this marriage. That is the only way for her, in her mind, that she would be free ultimately. Okay, so she took her own life. It is a tragic end. We have two suicide in this book, and they both are very contradictory. We do not feel sympathy for John Reed, but we do feel sympathy for Bertha Mason. She was a mental person, but she deserved better. Okay, she deserved everything. I really like her character. I don't know, she was really insane, but all she did was try to make herself heard, and that ultimately drove her to that extremities to took her own life. And yeah, she just she became a free spirit after that. She found peace after that. Then we have Mr. Rochester. Mr. Rochester was kind of a playboy when he was a youngster, I would like to say. But after married to Bertha, he was just in a plain misery. He became antisocial. He became irritated. His whole life changes when he married Bertha Mason. And when he met Jane, he sees a ray of light, a sweet atom in the bitter world. Okay, that's what he called her, that she was like a sweet atom in the bitter fruit. And that was so romantic, by the way. He ultimately grew on me. I do not like him at first, but he was so passionate and he expressed himself in a way that makes me just wonder what kind of person he is. I really want to know him, like not as a romantic person, but I really like to know what kind of a what kind of feelings he has, or what kind of a thinking pattern he possesses, and how much he cared about Jane. Like first when he proposed to Jane, he was like, yeah, you will marry me. And at the second time he was like, yeah, Jane, will you marry me? If you want to go, you should go. Like he became this pleasant person to be around with. And that happened because he tried to save Bertha when he burned down the house and tried to, commit suicide. She succeeded, but he could not save her. And after trying to escape the fire, he burned down, his eyes. And he became blind and deformative in some ways. So he became this person that needs all the care in the world, and that bothered him. But after Jane returned to him, they got married, that he got his wish, he got his person. He is just truly happy in his life. And after 10 years, after 2 years, he got partial eyesight in his one eye, and one eye always just left blind. But he also have children with Jane. He also accept Diana and Mary as Jane's sisters. And yeah, they live happily ever after that. So that is Mr. Rochester. He got his wish, because when Jane asked him, like, why are you traveling so much and what were you doing for the past 15 years after locking your wife up, then he told her that he was looking for someone to marry, to spend his life, and to love him as much as he wants to love her. And at the end he got that. So another fairy tale come true for him, I guess. He was really very dramatic, but yeah, I really like him. And last but not least, we have Jane Eyre. So at this point, you have the major ideas how every character in this book just affect Jane's life. So that's what happened with Jane. She learns so much from everyone's positive, negative, some some questionable things, but she learns, and that shapes her mind and her soul, and her feelings got changed. She got hurt by someone, she was happy by so many people, and at the end, from the start, Jane was orphan, and all she want is family. Even after she received £20,000, she gave 75% away just so that she will have family. Okay, she will have family, and she really wants them to have a better life. She became governess to Adele, and shape her life too. She saves St. John Rivers and Mr. Rochester's in a way, because St. John's house was not like very grand, and they were living very poorly. They were very educated persons, all of them, but their living standard was not so great. So Jane gave the money away to them and saved them. And here Mr. Rochester, who has so much, like everything, he was very wealthy, but Jane gave her life, her love, to Mr. Rochester, and saved them too, and save him too. Okay, so in a way, Jane consider that these people just saves her. She thanks St. John Rivers for saving her life, and she also thanks Mr. Rochester for loving her. But if you think about it, Jane is the reason that they both are happy in their life. Okay, ultimately. So that is that. And at the end, Jane has everything: a loving husband, children, uh, two sisters that just admire her, and she respect them all. She also have friends in the form of Bessie and Miss Temple, and she also have resolvable feelings towards Mrs. Reed at the end, and she do not hold any grudge against Georgiana and Eliza. She also have a admiring pupil as Adele. Yeah, so her life is fulfilled by the end, and that is all the character that I find significance and their ending. Okay, so if you like this video, then woohoo! I will see you in my next one, and if you enjoy this, then yeah, consider subscribing. I will see you in my next video. Okay, bye.